Hey y'all, it's Alex from You Should Craft, and today I'll show you how to crochet my pretty present ornaments. There are two different sizes of these. Today I'll show you how to crochet the square size, but there'll be another tutorial video for the rectangle size, so just make sure you check out my channel for that. Before we get started with this, subscribe to the You Should Craft channel and check out the You Should Craft blog for more free patterns and tutorials. So follow along with this video to figure out how to make them. Once you're done, you can hang them on your Christmas tree. You can use them as like gift toppers. There's a lot of cute things that you can do with these for the holidays. So the materials will be the same regardless of what size of ornament you're doing, whether the square or the rectangle. So you will need two different colors of worsted weight yarn. I'm using an acrylic from We Crochet called Brava. You'll need one color for the ribbon, so like the center ribbon and the bow, and then another color for like the present body, so kind of the wrapping paper color. So on the rectangle one, I've used a gray for my present color and kind of a teal for my bow color. And on the square one, I've used this like maroonish red color for the present and white for the bow. So whatever colors you want, you don't need a ton of it. You can see here I just have like a little scrap pile. You'll also need a 4mm crochet hook. This is a G hook from Furls. It's a Silver Odyssey. If you don't have a 4mm, then any similar sized hook will be fine too. Gauge is not super important for this project. So if you have like a 4.25 or a 3.75, those are fine, totally fine as well. You'll also need scissors and a tapestry needle. And then you'll need a little bit of polyfill or yarn scraps, just something to like fill your ornament. So we will start off with the body panel. You're going to make two of these. So I've already made the first panel. I got a little bit of a jump start, but I'll make the second one with you. So again, you're going to make two. They are exactly the same. So you will start with a slip knot. And then insert your hook. We're going to chain 11. So I've got my chain of 11. I'll just double count it real fast. And then I'm going to crochet into the second chain from my hook. I usually go along the back bump, but since we're doing a border on this, it doesn't really matter where you crochet into. So here's my first chain and my second chain from my hook, so I'll crochet into here. And this is a single crochet. So I've inserted my hook. I'm yarning over, pulling up a loop, yarning over, and pulling through those last two loops. So again, this is US terminology and it's a single crochet or SC. Inserting my hook into the back bump. Oops, I missed like a piece of yarn. Now I yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through those last two loops. Insert my hook, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through two loops. So I'm just going to do these single crochets until I get to the end. You should have 10 for this row. All right, I've got one left now. And then this is the end of row 1. So chain 1, turn my work, insert my hook into the first stitch, and I'm doing another single crochet. I'm just going to single crochet across. This will give us 10 again. And I'm going to do 5 rows of this if you're working ahead. So I finished a row, chaining 1, turning my work, inserting my hook, yarning over, finishing my single crochet. Alright, that's the end of row 3, chain 1. I'm kind of turning and inserting my hook at the same time, but now I'm just going to single crochet all the way across. And this will be row 4 that I'm working on right now. And here is row 5. So this is where I'm going to switch to white for my ribbon. So when I get to my very last stitch, I'm going to change colors. So here's the last stitch of row 5. I'm inserting my hook and I'm pulling up that first loop. But now I have 2 loops on my hook, and I'm going to pull out my white yarn, which looks like trash. I should have gotten it ready first. But, and I'm not even going to bother trimming the green because I'm going to switch back to it after only 2 rows, so it's not really a big deal. So I just yarn over like I normally would. I leave a tail that's maybe like 5 or 6 inches long so that I can weave it in later. And then I just yarn over and I finish that stitch. So now I chain 1 and I turn, but now I'm using white. And I'm going to crochet over this tail a little bit. And so you can kind of tighten up this side if you pull the strings. So I'm just single crocheting all the way across. And I'm crocheting on top of that end from before. From when I switched colors, and that'll just help everything stay tight, and it'll save me my like actual tapestry needle type weaving in at the end. So I am almost done with my first row of white. I'm going to chain 1, turn my work, and then just do my second row of white. And then, so on my last stitch, I'm going to do what I did with the green before. so I'm not finishing. So I have 2 loops on my hook. I'm just going to leave them there. The white, though, I'm not going to come back to, so I am going to trim that. So again, leaving like a 6-ish inch tail. And then I just pull my green up and I'll yarn over and pull it through. And you can see it on the edge, but we're going to do a single crochet border. So it doesn't really matter that it's there. We won't notice it. So I'm chaining 1, and now I'm just back to single crocheting. I've got 5 rows of green just so this can be symmetrical. So that'll mean there's 12 total rows in our project. 5 green, 2 white, and 5 more green. So chaining 1, turning my work. Uh-oh. Got a little knot wound up here. And another another one. It's like a true knot. So I'm just going to pull my whole project through this to untie it. And now there's another one. Great. All right, so now I'm back on track with just single crocheting 5 rows of green. I'm on my second of 5 rows. Here's the end of my 3rd row. So I'm chaining 1, turning, and here's row 4. Chaining 1, turning my work, and this is the last row, row 5/12. So it's the 5th row from like our second green section, but if you're just counting rows from the beginning, this is row 12. So single crochet when you're looking at the right side, which for us is the sides with the even numbered rows. You can just count each section. There's kind of a little divot, and that separates out 2 rows. So here's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So we know we're done with this. We can trim our yarn, leaving like a 6-ish inch tail. I'm going to weave in my ends a tiny bit, but it doesn't have to be very good unless you want it to be, because we can always kind of jam them inside of our project. So it's not like you're crocheting a blanket or something where you'll see both sides. So I'm just weaving a little bit up this side of my work. Gonna go into this row a little bit, just come out here. And honestly, I'm just gonna like leave this here. On this first one that I did, I wove in my ends for real, but like I said, it doesn't really matter. So I'll do the same thing for this white. This is kind of like lazy weaving, I guess. I'm just threading my needle through this entire row and just pulling it through. And again, that is good enough. We won't see the ends when we're done. You can either single crochet border over them, or you can just like smush them into your project. It doesn't really matter. So I'll do the same lazy weaving with this very last guy. It's like our starting tail. And I'm just doing the same thing. I'm kind of like jamming it into the side a little bit. So you don't even have to trim them. But all right. Now that we have both sides done, you want to figure out what your right sides are, because this side I feel like looks noticeably cleaner. So it is, if you're crocheting right-handed, it's the side with like the even numbered rows. But if you're looking at it, it's the side where all of your single crochets are evenly distributed. They're kind of like grouped in rows of 2. So for me, it's these 2 sides. On the other side, there's like a row of 1 at the top, and then like a lonely row of 1 at the bottom too. So it's not like a crazy difference or anything, but I feel like it just doesn't look as nice. So now that you have your 2 like good rows, you want those to be facing out. So put your wrong sides together, and we are going to start crocheting our border. So I'm getting more white, which is currently stuck inside of its skein. And I'm going to join my yarn. So the first thing I'll do is make a slip knot. And I'll just kind of save that for now. So I will insert my hook into like the center of the white section of the ribbon part. And I'm going to go through both pieces, so both the front and the back piece. So I've inserted my hook. Now I've put my slip knot and my yarn onto my hook. I'm pulling it tight, and I'm pulling that through. This seems kind of weird, maybe, especially if you're new to crocheting, but this is just how we join yarn. and then I'm going to chain 1. And then I will single crochet into this very same spot that I just joined onto. So now it's joined, and I'll continue to single crochet around all the edges. You'll end up with about 1 single crochet per row or per stitch, depending on what direction you're going. So like to start off with, I'm crocheting into like the sides of the rows, but once I get to this side, I'll be crocheting into actual stitches. Sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to get your hook in there. So just do the best that you can. This is a pretty forgiving border. You'll just keep crocheting around. Sometimes I have to jam it in here, and part of why it's harder for me is because I literally just wove some of my ends into here. All right, so I'm almost to the corner. When I'm at the corner, I'm going to add some extra stitches that will help me like turn the corner and have an even number still. Or sorry, not have an even number, but it helps just like space out the cornering. So I've crocheted 1 in my corner so far, and I'm going to do 2 more. So this sort of, I am having trouble thinking of the words, but it just helps make your corner like kind of rounded instead of having to stretch your stitches across the corner. So now I'll just keep doing what I was doing. I'm just single crocheting in each stitch around. So 1 single crochet per stitch or per row, depending on what direction or like what side you're on. So now these are basically, I'm crocheting into the bottoms of stitches. And my little yarn tail is getting in my way, so I can just tuck it into the inside and it can just live there forever. We don't need it for anything. So because you're doing 1 stitch per stitch, you'll end up with about 10 stitches on each side. It ends up being a little bit more because we've put some more in the corners. And because there's technically 12 rows. But again, it doesn't really matter as long as your stitches are like evenly distributed. All right, so I'm pulling out some more yarn, just got like a huge clump. I think it senses that I'm making a video and then just does what it wants. But here I am at the corner. I've crocheted 1, here's 2, and then here's a 3rd single crochet. So remember, we're putting 3 single crochets in every corner. And then now I'm going to be crocheting along the sides of stitches again. So I'll be doing approximately 1 single crochet per row. You might end up with a little bit more or a little bit less, just based on what the sides look like. you may reach a part where it's like impossible to get it in or where you accidentally skip a row. It's not a huge deal. So this area here is a little bit sloppy on mine because I've got that like green thing from when I didn't I didn't trim my yarn and weave it in. So I want to try to go over this so that it's less obvious. If you don't get it in all the way like as good as you want, like if you can still see it, you can trim a piece of yarn and just sort of weave in and out over whatever part you thought was ugly, and that can kind of hide it. So that's something that we can do at the end. Whoop. I've got a split from a green yarn. So here I am in a corner again. I'm going to put 3 single crochets here. 1, 2, 3. And soon I will want to start adding my stuffing because I'm like 3/4 of the way done crocheting around the edges. So I've got this little like corner that I can open, get my fiber fill, and I can just jam it in there. These are small enough where you can use your fingers, but usually polyfill comes with like, it's like a chopstick, like a skinny wooden stick that they put in there to help you get your stuffing into the corners and stuff. So you don't need a ton, maybe like a handful. If you notice that it's starting to get fatter than you want, you can just take a little bit extra out. Not a huge deal. So this, for me, is too fat. I just want it to be lightly stuffed. All right. Ugh, even that I feel like is too much. Cool. So I'll insert my hook again and just continue to crochet around. So I'm at the corner. I'm going to do 3 stitches again. 1, 2, and 3. And then just finish off. Whoops, that went in kind of weird. Just finish off the border. And this is going to seem so picky, but as I'm holding it in my hands, that's like more, it still feels like too much stuffing. So before you seal it all the way up, you can kind of poke the stuffing into all of the corners. Make sure it's like evenly distributed in the middle. You could sort of wiggle it around to make sure you're getting it everywhere. Okay, so now I've just got a couple stitches left, and then we're going to make a long chain to create the little hanging like hook at the top. All right, so in order to crochet the bow, you'll start with a slip knot and we're going to chain 50. So this is a pretty long chain. All right, so I have 50. If you have a couple more or a couple less change, it is not a huge deal. So don't even worry about like going back and recounting unless you really feel like you are like drastically off. But it totally doesn't matter. This is just for the bow. So now I'm going to single crochet all the way across. So I'll single crochet into the second chain from my hook. So 1, 2, and I'm going to do the back bumps just to give it a cleaner look. But this will give me 49 single crochets. If your chain is a little bit longer or a little bit shorter, again, it's not a huge deal. You'll just end up with 1 less single crochet than you had chained. So if you chained 52 accidentally, you would have 51 single crochets. So just put 1 single crochet in every chain across. So this will just give you like a long, skinny strip. So I'm approaching the end. I've got maybe like 10-ish single crochets left. When you finish, you will just weave in your ends so that this is just a long, skinny strip. So there's my last one. I will trim my yarn, pull through my hook, whoop, and then insert my tapestry needle. And it's a little bit weird to weave into such a skinny, like just one row thing. So just do the best that you can. If you're using white like me, I feel like you'll find that it's especially hard. You really just need like the perfect lighting. But all right, there's my first one woven in. I'm just gonna trim it. And now I'll weave in my other end. So one of these is from my starting tail, and one of them is from my like finishing tail, I guess. And this tapestry needle does not have an eye that is big enough for yarn, it seems like. Okay. This is just a random one I found on my desk. Because I'm constantly losing the ones that I like. But alright, same deal, just kind of weaving in as best I can given the circumstances. And then trim it. All right. So now you have this long, skinny thing. I'm going to get a different colored background real fast, just so that it will be a little bit easier to see, since I know white can be a challenge. All right, so I've pulled out this little wooden cutting board thing to just add a little bit of contrast to help you see how to put the bow together. The first thing you're going to do is get a piece of yarn. That's maybe like 18 to 24-ish inches long. No need to measure super closely. This one I think I got is a little bit too long. But I will insert my tapestry needle just so I'm ready when my bow is made. So I have this thing, and I'm going to kind of fold it in half and then fold it to make like kind of an M shape. And then I want the sides to all kind of like cross over so it looks like a bow. So we're not really tying it like a real bow, but if we have our M, then we sort of rotate it a little a little bit, just so it looks more like a bow. And you can kind of like readjust it in your hands if you feel like there's anything that you're not loving about it. You know, you can make the loops longer or shorter, so I feel like I want mine to be a little bit bigger. But definitely similar sized to each other. If you find that anything is like going a weird direction, you can kind of twist it to fix it. But once you're happy with your bow shape, you'll take your tapestry needle and you'll just jam it through the middle, making sure you get all of the layers. And we don't want to pull it through super far because we need a lot of extra because we're going to wrap around our bow. But so I'm just going to go all the way through the middle like a couple times to secure it. Again, making sure you get through every layer that's there. So there should be like 3 layers. 1 layer from each bow side, and then kind of this middle, like, I don't know, crossbar thing. So get through those just to make it super secure. And then you can pull out your needle. You can wrap this around a little bit. We're going to cover it with the other piece of yarn. So no worries on that front. You don't have to worry about like weaving it in or anything like that. All right, so now with your other end, you're going to wrap your yarn around your bow like 10-ish times, 10 to 15, depending on, you can go a little bit further if you feel like you need more or if your yarn tail is just really long. I am not counting at all right now, so I don't know how many times that was. But we do want to save a little bit of extra because we will use it to attach our bow to our present. So insert your yarn needle again. You can pick whatever side you want to be the front or the back. It doesn't really matter. They should look pretty much the same, but just like decide which one you feel like is cuter, I guess. I'm going to say this side is my front. I don't have a reason for that. But you can weave your yarn through a little bit on the back side just to make it secure. But like I said, it doesn't really matter. All right. Okay, so now get your present and we're going to attach it right here in the center of our ribbon, right in front of the bow. So figure out where you want it and then we're going to sew it on. I'm using the square ornament in this example, but the sewing process will look the same for both shapes, the square and the rectangle. So don't worry if you're like, oh, that ornament is different now. it's exactly the same. Once you feel pretty happy with how secure it is, just like weave in your ends a little bit. And then trim your yarn, and then just kind of like spiff up the front a little bit. But that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure that you subscribe to the You Should Craft channel or follow the You Should Craft blog for more crochet patterns and tutorials.